Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. I'm almost here. All right. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, or at least I can.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Let's see.
We
You
cannot see you, though.
can't see me because I'm the man of mystery. And I got to figure out which. Oh, there we go.
Oh, wow.
So let's see. I'm going to pin my video. I'm going to show you guys a new trick that I have that I can't turn off for some reason. Some guys from IT, institutional technology, no, media services, came over and they said, James, it looks like you are switching videos and stuff with your class. Let us load a new piece of software onto your computer. Well, great. They spent 2 hours yesterday and loaded a new piece of software on my computer, and now I can do this. I can do this, and this, and this, and this. I can change between the
Ooh,
cameras that I have. I know, it's so cool.
a face.
So, but I have to run everything through this thing. It won't shut off and it won't turn loose of my computer or my cameras, and it makes me scared that I have just lost control of the technology. Anyway, who's ever in control of the technology? He asked rhetorically. Welcome to Sculpture. I have to welcome myself to Sculpture. I forgot my school keys and I had to run home and get my keys. So it is, it's 1:05. Okay, so where are we? I was cutting wood this morning and I've been off campus. I also just fought a fire, successfully put out a fire. So I've had one of those mornings, Um, so we are poking along here, working on the non-objective, non-representational piece, the freeform sculpture. And this is about where everybody gets mad at me and wants to either throw it on the ground themselves or throw me on the ground for making them do this. I would like you guys to make sure that you take a photograph of it at some point, so that you can turn that in for the assignment. Because if you turn a photograph of it into coursework, then I have something to grade, and that's good. You know, it's unfortunately doesn't do me a lot of good to have the sculpture in front of me because I can take a picture of it, but I can't upload it into your name for the coursework. And that's the only way that I can grade stuff in e-learning. I'm learning so much about e-learning by being forced to actually teach my classes in e-learning. I guess I was the last guy, the last teacher who doesn't use e-learning to grade stuff and to run their classes through the whole, e-learning um, uh, thing. Anyway, I'm sorry I was complaining, and I shouldn't be complaining. I should welcome you all to the thing. Let me find the clipboard that belongs to Sculpture and take attendance and see who's all here today. And then I will answer your questions. So think of a question or a complaint about this project, and we can go around and each person can open their mic and in about 3 minutes and say their question or show us their sculpture or voice their complaint, and we can do this and it'll be good. But first things first, attendance. So let's see who's all here. Okay. And I'm over around the corner from my sculpture station. I'm over here at my basic design station instead. So this is the clean spot. This is the clean area of the table where I don't have clay and crud all over the place. So anyway, there's all of that. What does the participants list look like? It won't let me turn it on. Because that's one of the things that I can't, I can do it if I hit it like 3 times real fast. If I click my heels together and say there's no place like home, Aurora, yes, then Dylan, Haha. Where's Dylan? There is Dylan. Okay. And Elizabeth. Hello, Elizabeth. And Catherine Rhodes. Catherine Rhodes is here. And PC. So PC, I had a question for you. I sometimes see that you're signed in on my participants list as PC. I was just wondering, what is a good handle for you? Because if I've been calling you the wrong name all this time, I want to stand corrected. And if you want to be called PC, you've got to let me know so I do the right thing. So,
Whatever you feel comfortable with. Paula, PC, it's just how I signed into Zoom. It's not a preference. It
okay.
doesn't really matter. Call me
Well,
anything but late for dinner.
okay, well, that's great. I mean, I've got lots of students who want to be called very specific things, including, um, personal pronouns and stuff. And, we are all working hard to try to keep up with everything because I want everybody to be respected in the class, and to be called the name that you want to be called, and, use the personal preference pronouns that people want to have used, and show the kind of respect that I can, in my limited ability to show respect because I'm an old white European male stuck in his ways. So anyway, so I got you guys logged into the class. Okay. So if there's anybody who has, first of all, a question or comment about the project, the problems that you've run into so far, or the revelations that you've had along this creative journey, please tell your story, unmute your mic, shout it from the rooftop, because I would love to hear if there's anything that you want to talk about, complain about, or share with the group for the good of the group, because that would be great while I try to figure out what to do. We've been at this project for about a week and a half now, at least a week in earnest. We mostly got started, I guess, on Thursday last week, and people. So this is the end of the week and a half, or the second week on this project. I was going to give this one more week. And so if you guys are done and bored and don't know what else to do with it, we need to talk about that, because I'll either need you to do another quickie, another quick non-objective, non-representational piece, and blast one out if you've got one finished and you just don't want to change it anymore. Or we're going to keep working on these and continue to morph them and evolve them and refine them over the next week or so. I have not been able to sculpt on mine at all because I've had other junk going on, and I would like to, go through that process of sculpting and refining my piece with you. So I was able to, make some suggestions about transitions between elements. And then we've talked about the different styles or qualities of elements that you have in a composition like this: a linear form of some kind, a planar form of some kind, and then something that's a bit more volumetric, and all of these things can take on lots of different shape qualities along the length of them. So they morph from volumetric to planar, or into these linear forms. And then, the transitions between forms can either be quite abrupt, with one shape stopping, and even stopping with a kind of a groove or an indentation before the next shape springs out of it, or they can have a much more flowing transition between form. Oh, Aurora, okay, please talk. Oh, I'm sorry.
So I more just have like a question, because I don't mind working on this for another week. There's a ton of stuff that I could still do to it, but you keep talking about me trying to bring like thickness up into the top of the sculpture, and every time that I try to do it, it ends up falling and breaking off, or pieces like that are more dry than the lower half of the sculpture.
Uh-oh.
Like as it's settling, it cracks, and that makes it pop off. So I'm having a hard time bringing like super thick pieces up. So I'm going with the other route you talked about, which is to thin out the lower half. And the way I'm doing that is just by adding like a lot more like negative spaces.
Yeah.
So, but that was mostly my question. It's like, if you have a sculpture like this, would you need to just like scrape off a section till you get to wet or clay and then attach it to build it up? Or how do you go about doing that?
Okay, well, as the clay dries, it's going to dry fairly uniformly. So if it's getting to be bone dry up at the top, it's pretty much bone dry all the way through. This is the one piece of many pieces that is a disadvantage of us working at home and not in the studio. I usually have a spray atomizer bottle filled with water that I can spray down the sculptures with, and to try to moisten the sculpture and try to keep it at some kind of uniform amount of moisture content. I don't want to call it wet or moist clay because it loses all of its strength when it goes all the way back to moist clay. But if we can keep it at a soft leather hard, that'll give you the opportunity to sculpt on all parts of it all at the same time, and even rip off pieces and change pieces and build pieces on. So if you have a spray bottle, that would be helpful. If you can take a little bit of water from your fingers and maybe rub some water on it, not getting it all too wet, but imparting enough moisture back into the clay, it will absorb that moisture and bring it back to leather hard. And if you reapply every 20 minutes or so, you can bring it back to a soft leather hard in the upper reaches that are really drying out. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention how to manage moisture content in the clay, and that would be a thing to try. So
Definitely. And really, the only parts that are like really starting to dry out are these much thinner areas in here
yeah,
and like in here. But the like from here down and like even the thicker pieces over here, they're fine. I can still mold them and shape them.
okay.
And I'm pretty much finished with the parts that have fully dried, if you want to call it fully dried, because if I like scrape the outside layer, it's still wet on the inside.
Okay. Well, it would be nice for transporting it over here. I hope you guys have a car and can drive your sculpture over in the back seat or in the passenger seat with a seatbelt, safety first. But transporting it is easier if it's leather hard than if it's bone dry, because then suddenly it's very fragile when it's bone dry. And when it's leather hard, it still has a lot more strength, structural integrity for transporting it, especially coming from Reedsport. So keep that in mind. When you declare it done, you're going to want to continue to either spray it down or moisten it or keep it wrapped up so that it doesn't go completely bone dry until you can get it safely over here. And then I can dry it out the last little bit and fire these things. If anybody's got masks that are still getting finished or anything, please bring them on over, because I'm happy to load up another kiln load full of masks and fire those. I think I probably have all the masks here though. And so if you want to come by tomorrow and drop off a non-objective sculpture, if it looks like it's done and you're ready to abandon it, because sculptures are never finished. We merely abandon sculptures at some point, usually because they're getting too dry to work on. You can bring non-objective sculptures here and deposit them on my back porch and pick up your masks to take home so that we can start this kind of painting process with the masks next week. And if people are still working on their non-objective pieces next week, then we're going to kind of blend these two projects together, painting and decorating and finishing the masks and finishing the freeform sculpture all at the same time. I'm not too worried about it. You're doing a good job. Okay, I'm shutting up now. Aurora still has a hand up and Paula has a hand up. So you're going to unhand yours. And PC, what's up?
I still have a mask to drop off tomorrow.
Okay, that'll be great. I'll look forward to it. That'll be fantastic. I hope it's not out of your way and that it's part of your regularly scheduled.
No, it isn't. I missed it last week because when I came in, I ended up being in town for almost 6 hours between vet appointments and doctor appointments. And it's just like, I'm not dealing with it. But tomorrow I will be. I'm going to put a grocery order in at Walmart so I can pick it up around the same time tomorrow. So I don't have to go in the store.
Yes, well, that's what we do. We're all doing curbside service now. So the college does curbside and Walmart does curbside, and that's good. Yes.
Yeah, it's not my favorite mask. So if you don't have time to fire it, it can go in the recycle barrel. I'm not going to cry my eyes out over it.
Okay.
But if it gets fired, it gets fired.
Okay. All right. Well, it will get fired. It's easy to squeeze in a mask because they fit between sculptures and they even stand up on their edges. So masks are easy to squeeze into the process. And if anybody else, wants to do another mask for any reason, because it was fun, because you're suddenly seized with new inspiration, or whatever, this might make a good Christmas present for somebody else or something, you're sure welcome to do one, and that's fine. And another one, and that's fine, because I can always squeeze them in. Thank you. That's good. So that's where we're sitting today. We're sculpting. I left you guys for an hour unattended last time. And I hope that you had a good time talking to each other and sculpting. I appreciate that Aurora texted me and said, we're all done. You can shut off the meeting now, which I came back and did, which was great. But I can't just do that. I'm going to have to also get out my sculpture and be sculpting on it for a while. So there might be times that I'm just not talking today because I'll be sculpting on my stuff. So we can just kind of visit with each other. Commiseration, that's sharing our misery. We are co-miserating with each other. Visiting about the sculpture or life in general, or life in COVID land. I can tell you guys that I spoke with my dean a day or two ago, and he's really interested in letting me do the sculpture class face-to-face here at the college. He says that we have to try to offer a couple of really cool classes face-to-face for the students who are in student housing. Otherwise, they will riot and leave the college. So it's looking like sculpture with the nude model is a go for winter quarter. I haven't gotten the green light from the vice president of instruction yet, but all indications are that they want to have several of these flagship classes able to go. And so this is, I think, going to go, which will be great. So it's only going to be open, unfortunately, to people who are on campus housing because they're afraid of bringing in contagion from off campus. So I know that doesn't sound very fair, PC, to you or anybody else who's not in on campus housing, but they think that's the way they're going to be able to control exposure and transmission, because they think they've got a pretty good handle on controlling exposure and transmission of virus in student housing, and they're less sure about that with the students who are living at home and in the area. So that's what they're going to do winter quarter for that class. I've also got bronze casting available. That's going to be a night class on Monday and Wednesday nights. And I offer bronze casting every quarter, usually during the school year. So they canceled it this quarter, but they're going to let me do it winter quarter, and I am assuming spring quarter too. So if you can't get into the sculpture class for whatever reason, bronze casting is another sculpture class, except that you are sculpting in wax instead of clay for the lost wax process, and that we will be taking our little sculptures and casting them in bronze, and then you'd be finishing off your piece in bronze. So that's an alternative that you might want to look at. I think we're going to be doing advising here starting in the next week or so. And so everybody who is a freshman is supposed to be getting your academic advising from our counseling and advising center. And those of you who are sophomores or have been here longer than that can get advising from the teachers who are the subject specialists in your area. So if you're an arts major, a visual arts major of some kind, I would be the advisor for people who want advice, academic advising. That's choosing classes to fulfill your major or to fulfill your degree requirements, talking to you about a major and or transferring to a college or university of your choice to get a bachelor's degree, talking to you about career options in the visual arts, like teaching or teaching, because pretty much if you're a fine arts person, the only career option out there is teaching. Otherwise, you got to go into some applied area of design, like graphic design or something like that, fashion design, product design, web design. Those kinds of areas are where there are actual jobs. Or you can start your own business and do web design for people. So I'm available to do that, or we can do advising right here in the classroom while we're sculpting. So if I pull my sculpture out and start working on it and stop talking, if somebody like Aurora wanted to talk about advising stuff and didn't mind other people eavesdropping, I could advise you guys about career pathways in art, what it takes to get a degree and get qualified to teach at either a high school or college, and all of that kind of stuff. So we can do that. And look at Aurora; she's just all over this. She's just like, that's it. Do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Aurора's got her hand up again. Yes, sir.
So all the, even the bronze or the bronze casting is going to be off the list for anybody that's not living on campus?
Not exactly sure, because I pitched them both as face-to-face classes, and my dean thought that he had a fallback position if they wouldn't let me teach 2 face-to-face classes, that I would teach the bronze casting online for at least 7 weeks while we were sculpting the figure or whatever it is. You're sculpting your own project at home in wax. And then everybody would bring their projects in for the casting process. And then we would be coming in the last 3 weeks of the quarter for grinding and polishing on the bronzes. So it's kind of a hybrid class where you'd be not meeting with me for the first 6 weeks and then maybe meeting for me in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And I think that could be open to off-campus people. So
okay.
keep that one in mind. That's Arts 244 bronze casting.
Yeah, because I want to do more sculpting. I want to do different things. I've done the figure sculpture, and it's not my thing.
Okay. Yes.
It's okay. I don't absolutely hate it. There's just other things I like more, and other things I want to experiment with.
Okay, that's all. That's good. That's fair.
So I also have a question.
Yes.
About the figure sculpting class, because I'm off campus. I live across the bay. And that's like the class that I was really looking forward to. Yeah. So if I have to wait until, I don't know, like next year or whenever, I will. But I was also wondering if there's going to be like a video option for that class. But if not, I completely understand, because that's a lot of work on your end.
These are wonderful questions. I would encourage you to contact my dean, your dean, our dean. Let's see, Michael Winston is the dean of collegiate ed, and I can give you his email address. And I would say, make a special, case, a petition, but it can be in the form of an email to him. To let him know that you're super interested, you're desperate to get in this class, but you do live off campus, but you believe in clean living, and you are, you're not suffering any ill effects, and you're going to stay, healthy, throughout the winter. And if you can make such a case to him, then he might make a special dispensation and let you into the class.
All right, definitely. I will go buy a thermal thermometer, I'll take tests daily.
Um, along those lines, I think I'm going to need to hire a model to model for that class. We have a person that worked for the class last year that we may approach to see if she's interested in working that job. And otherwise, we may have to open this up through human resources to do our normal hiring process for that. So if any of you, especially on-campus people, know of somebody who might be an athlete or a dancer that has some kind of background with a kinesthetic sense of their own body in space and would be bold enough and confident enough to pose nude in front of other people, tell them that this might be a job opportunity to apply for through human resources here at the college. It pays $15 an hour. And, you know, oftentimes the people who live in student housing are not from around here. They're from remote areas, other states, that kind of thing that we've recruited in. And so as somebody who's not a local, they don't feel the same hesitation to pose nude in front of other people. When I've got local people working that job, there is the added stress of having maybe gone to high school with some of these people, or you might know somebody in the class because you grew up with them or you grew up in town. It's a small town, that kind of thing. So people who live in the dorms have a little bit more anonymity and a little bit more safety and security that way in taking on that kind of a job. But I can tell you that being an art model is a really cool job, and it lets you experience the class from the other side, and it lets you experience the whole model thing from the other side. And we respect and treat our models with both respect and professionalism. And so and I put the fear of God into the students in the class to make sure that they conduct themselves with a sense of seriousness, purpose, and professionalism in the class. So I've said my piece about that, but I've got that hurdle to do too, to hire somebody to be the model for the class. And that's another thing that's on my plate that you guys don't really have to worry about. So I share too much. So how about if I get out my sculpture and I'll sculpt along with you, and then if you have questions, please feel free to just unmute your mic and blurt in, or everybody unmute your mics, and we can visit, we can chat about sculpture or about life. And it's a sunny day, so we can just talk for a while. We'll see how it goes. It's 1:30 now, and around 2 o'clock, if we're getting bored with this, we can call it a day for the Zoom conference. But otherwise, we can commiserate and visit as much as you guys want. I'm going to turn this camera around, and I'm going to go over to my sculpture table so I can sculpt with you all. Okay. It's fun dragging you guys across the room with me. Okay. So one of the things that I like to try to impart to you guys, to anybody who's within earshot on these sculptures, is that if a sculpture is this big, if we're working in this size and scale of a sculpture, this is considered a tabletop sculpture. I'm going to pin my video to me so I can do this. If we're working, come on down here, you. Okay. working tabletops, scale and size, somewhere between 12 and 60 inches tall, a lot less than a foot wide. Um, I try to not vary the texture too much over the size of the sculpture. So if I'm working in an additive process and I've got an additive thing kind of going with the texture, I'm pretty much going to want to have that be a fairly uniform texture over the whole thing. And I'm not crazy about doing applied textures. I don't like to fake a texture. I really believe in the philosophy of the truth to materials movement of uh, craftsman style houses and let's see, that wasn't Art Nouveau. What was that?
Arts and Deco?
Yeah, so sort of. There was several movements around the beginning of the 20th century, and one of them was really about truth to materials. If you're working in clay, make it look like clay. If you're working in metal, make it look like metal. Don't try to make something look like it's not. And I like the integrity of something like that. So while I don't mind the marks of the fingers, the marks of the mark maker, fingerprints and that kind of stuff, additive process in the sculpture, that's fine. I just don't want to decorate the sculpture afterwards with a uniform bunch of art marks on it. That's just my thumb getting jammed into the thing over and over again to try to make that kind of a uniform texture. I kind of just want the texture to be the result of the sculpting process. And somehow there's an honesty and an integrity that gets imparted into the sculpture when you're not thinking about trying to make it a certain texture or something, but just have it become the result of working on it. And
is that what you want us to do as well?
What was that?
Is that what you want us to do as well?
Well, yeah, that's where I was going with this. And so I noticed that, your sculpture has a really nice texture or smoothness to it, which is just fine. I want that. I want to have an overall kind of a uniform texture to it so that it doesn't have polished areas in one part and super rough areas in another part and a whole bunch of lines, parallel to each other, incised into another part. Because again, that becomes really busy on the surface of the sculpture. And for a piece that's this size and scale, this is a more, up close and personal, not quite intimate scale. Intimate scale is a sculpture that fits in the palm of your hand. That's intimacy. But this is a pretty small scale sculpture. And so it just doesn't have enough real estate to have a lot of variety in terms of different textures in different places on it.
So the only texture I was going to add to this
say again
was, oh, sorry. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay. The only textures I was going to add to the sculpture were in all of my negative space holes. I was going to go in and just do like fine detail, almost like honeycomb type texture, but only within the holes.
You drive me crazy.
I'm sorry. I cannot do that though.
I love that you are so into this, that you have all of these ideas and you want to impart all these ideas on the sculpture. And sometimes we overthink it. You've never worked a thing to death, have you?
I have.
I
definitely
never overworked a piece of art before?
Oh no, I have.
Yes. I thought you might be one of those. So I'm just saying these things as kind of a cautionary tale. It's words of wisdom. I can't control what you're doing, especially when I'm not there to push your sculpture onto the floor and break it. So I'm going to wind up dealing with whatever comes in the back door here. And so you get to make those final decisions. But I'm saying these things mostly for the other students who have never done this before and don't know what to expect, or don't know what I'm expecting in terms of texture as well as forms. So I like your variety of forms that you've created. You've got a nice vocabulary of forms on your sculpture.
And I like the texture that you've got going there because it's fairly uniform all over the whole sculpture. And then if you do your thing, your honeycomb thing on the interior negative spaces, I can't control that. If it looks good, great. If it doesn't look good, you own it. So, good luck with that. But as a sculptor,
Fair enough.
it's okay. Paula, did you want to say something?
Me? No, I was just laughing.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah, please, you guys.
You own it thing.
You can keep your mics unmuted if you want to talk, and I'm going to try to shut up so that you can get a word in edgewise while I work a little bit. And I might take this sculpture and I might turn it upside down and maybe prop it up with a couple of temporary clay props and see what I can do with the bottom of this sculpture. And if I like this sculpture enough upside down, I might leave it upside down. You never know. Sometimes you take a sculpture, you set it down sideways and see how it looks sideways. Sometimes a new orientation in space gives a sculpture a whole new lease on life. So I've got some extra clay here, and so I'm going to put some temporary props on the sculpture and flip it upside down so I can address some of the issues in my bottom. And you do not have to say anything about issues in my bottom, because thank you very much for not doing that. And we're just going to keep on working here. La, la, la. Oh my gosh. Okay. You have a pretty big piece of clay on your side to prop that up. Okay, now it's not going to fall over, I don't think. But anyway, now I can work on trying to cut into this bottom rather thick element here and break it up visually into a couple of lobes or something. And then I can flip it back upside right and see if I get anything. Or if this grows on me and I really like this, then I might make this the new top, because who knows? You might make it a new top. Oh. I'm one of those guys who, like, if I put down a tool, I lose it. I'm one of those people who has 4 cups of coffee going at the same time because I keep putting down my coffee and I can't find it again. Does that ever happen to anybody else?
Absolutely.
Paula, that happened to you.
Oh, I was just thinking about one time that I forgot something in the grocery store. It happened to be one of my children. All I have to say is postpartum hormones, because he was like 2 days old. How can you forget that in the shopping
Oh
cart?
no.
How far did you get?
Oh, just to the car. And it's like, crap. He was like in one of those little baby seats in the shopping cart.
Oh no.
Oh my God, it was so embarrassing. Now it's just really funny.
I wish I had a story like that.
He survived to adulthood. He's like 30 now.
Yeah. And
He did survive.
nobody called Child Protective Services on you.
Oh, they almost did. They were going to call the police. They thought I left him on purpose.
Oh,
Oh
God.
I'm so
no.
embarrassed.
That's too bad. Well, we can always, look back and laugh at those things now that we've survived them. They're pretty horrible at the time, though. Anybody else in the class get left at a grocery store in a shopping cart?
No, it was always too far annoying to be left in a grocery cart. My mom would have known immediately.
What movie was it where the lady was always forgetting the kid? Was it Home Alone? No, it wasn't Home Alone. The kid was so used to it, they're like, really?
Again?
Yeah.
So over the years, I've kind of come to where I kind of do automatic sculpting on these non-objective forms. I used to sweat every detail and I worried about stuff and I stood there and I looked at it forever trying to figure out, okay, what's this shape supposed to be? What's this shape supposed to, what shape am I supposed to make here? And, you know, anymore, it's just like, well, I'm going to make a blob here and I'm going to make a transition here. Let me try a sharp transition. If the smooth transition doesn't work, you know, keep moving to another side and try it over on that side, and then, you know, come back and evaluate it after I get done or tired or, you know, need a new cup of coffee or something. So this is kind of crazy making for other academics who like to either evaluate me and my teaching methods and style, or try to evaluate the class in terms of, you know, collegiate content in the class. Because when you're sculpting non-objective, non-representational, you know, I don't know whether people really value the idea of automatic, autonomous, I don't know, you know, not sculpting on purpose. But sometimes, you know, in your writing classes and your creative writing classes, you might do some kinds of automatic writing where you're just throwing words or phrases together that are like free association or stream of consciousness kinds of things. Sometimes you'll do that in psychology, or if you're, you know, getting some kind of psychological if you're seeing a psychologist for talk therapy or something like that. So, you know, it can be therapeutic. It can be a way towards creativity because it breaks you out of the norm. It breaks you out of the box. You know, it's all about thinking outside of the box. And I know that that's a terrible cliche, but, you know, it still is what we do and what we fight all the time with sculpture, with art, with creativity. You know, we're trying to figure out how to do this stuff and make it look good. I'm going to try to adjust my camera. I got to push my camera back so you can actually see the sculpture. And I don't have to have my sculpture pinned to the video all the time. If you guys want to have your sculpture, you know, if you want to be the star of the show, we'll change the spotlight around so that you can show your sculpture while you're working on it if you want.
We were talking about, you know, trying to get thinking outside the box, but my statement whenever somebody says that is, what box? I live outside the box.
It's cool. It's cool to live outside the box. Most people are concerned about conformity. Most people want to conform. I know you don't want to conform, and that's just fine, but many do. Many are very, very concerned about what other people think and how closely they can conform to the norms of society or anything else.
Definitely.
If anything, you know, that's what we fight against in the arts and at college, is try to somehow liberate you from those confining, conforming norms that we get into in high school. Although all the art majors, all the people who take the art classes, many of them are very interested in not being normal or conforming. So that's fine too.
Thanks a lot, Fritz.
Ha! Who said that? Is that Elizabeth?
PC. No, PC.
See. Oh. So if you get a lot of pieces of clay that are hard, that have gotten too hard to do anything with, if you've got a clay bag, throw them in the clay bag and put some water in there so that they can absorb moisture and come back to moist clay status. Please, please, please keep your empty clay bags. And if you're going to be bringing stuff in or coming over to pick up stuff tomorrow, bring your empty clay bags over, because we need the empty clay bags for processing more clay. The college, is very concerned about spending money right now because we have fewer students, and so we have less revenue coming in. So they're very concerned about us spending our equipment budgets and our materials budgets. So I'm over here recycling and processing a lot of old clay that I have so that it's available to use for sculpture. I don't have ceramics being offered right now, so that part of the clay studio is completely shut down. So we're trying to save money by using up all this old clay and recycling it into the bags.
Yes. I have a whole thing of clay that I'm going to re-moisten for you because it's a good amount. And my old clay bags are in the corner waiting to come back to you.
Okay. Oh, there was another idea too. One of you crazy people wanted to build some kind of a small thing like a torso or something out of clay that you could then glue a bunch of stuff onto for the found object project. And so if anybody else needed to build something in clay that they needed fired so that they could glue objects onto it or use it as some kind of a scaffolding, some kind of a framework for the found object project, and you know enough about it to build that thing now, that would be helpful. That would be good. If you could get that done on the side and bring it in on a Monday or Friday, I can get it fired and get it recycled back to you so that you've got something to be that structural basis for the found object project when we get to it.
Was that Catherine?
It might have been. Do you remember Catherine from last year? Was she in one of your classes? I think I remember Catherine.
You talking to me?
I thought she was.
I don't think she was in one of my classes before.
Oh, okay. I think she was in one of my design classes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, see, and then get melted.
So I've been adding a lot more of those negative spaces through the clay, try to thin it out, like I told you. And the one that I'm working on right now is like almost impossible to get to. So I've been using like forks and tools and brushes, and I've almost got it to the point where I can like fit my hand in there and get what I need to out of it. But this is why I don't generally sculpt with my mic on, because I'm over here like cursing at my sculpture.
I thought you were going to say that you were starting to have structural failure down below because you were thinning stuff out so much.
Oh no.
It's not cracking yet. It's not failing structurally somehow. It's not falling over. Good.
No, I can actually completely lift it off of the board and it all stays solid. So
Okay.
I'm good there. That's actually my next mission, is to get it up off the board and round the edges where it's going to be sitting on just enough to where they don't look like they're what it sits on. But I'm trying to figure out how to do that and not break my sculpture. So that'll be fun. But I don't know if you can see it.
Need to be done with these.
I guess the drop dead due date would be next Thursday. Try to turn it in by next Friday if possible. And then we can start our last project the following week. So I've got to, do a demo on painting for the masks. And so that's going to be part or half of one of our class periods next week. And I've got to start doing demos about the found object project. I've got some found object projects here that I can show you live, and I've got a slideshow for that kind of thing. And so it's death by PowerPoint is coming your way again. So, but this, I only really allot 3 weeks for this sculpture. And so, oh my God, that's right. I also have to hollow some of this out, and you're probably wondering about that. So if you have areas of your sculpture that are thicker than 2 inches in cross-sectional thickness, those chunks are going to need to be hollowed out. And what I usually do is take a wire tool, just like this, and the wire tool that we use for pottery. And so I will cut down and through an area of the sculpture like this. I'll cut down, and then maybe I will cut out, so that I've kind of made an L-shaped kind of a cut in the clay. And so I have just done this to my clay. Here was the sculpture, and now I've opened it up, and I've got this lobe in my hand right here that I now need to envision about how I'm going to look at that in terms of a uniform wall thickness. And so taking a needle tool and drawing myself the line that ye shall not cross, I'm going to try to envision about a half inch or so wall thickness on that piece. And then I can take one of my melon ballers here, one of my loop tools, and be able to just pull all of that material out of the middle, and gonna hollow this piece out. I better find where I can do this so that you can see it. But it's hollowing very much like we did with I just had a piece kind of come apart. So sometimes you have to take some of these trimmings and stick them back in there to thicken it back up and to heal something in case you blast through the side, or in case the piece falls apart in your hand. Hate when that happens.
So we can just get car washed the whole time because nobody's gonna take the fucking service.
So has anybody been in a class with Zoom yet that has been Zoom bombed by some outsider?
No, but I heard about some news guy.
Did he just walk into the shot or something?
I didn't read the article, but I don't know which outfit he was from, but there was something on there about him accidentally walking through nude or something when he was in an interview. I think he forgot that he was at home by the sounds of it.
That's exciting. Oh, and speaking of that, the question came up, can we do the winter class with the nude model online? And my administrators here are very, very concerned about that. They have all kinds of strange ideas about the naked, nude, and what is pornographic and what is academically, considered, okay. And so for some reason, they don't want me broadcasting, on Zoom, images of a live nude model from the classroom.
That makes sense.
I think it would be better not to for the model safety as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
if
and I
freak is
agree with
gonna
you.
hack into the class and steal that and expose it.
So
Yeah.
I guess my other question would then be, if we have a model at our home and we can listen into the class, would that work?
Why, sure. If you can supply your own model, then you're golden. Then you're on your own in terms of your projects.
I would
I'll just
prefer
have
not to see my
convince
roommates naked.
partner.
Every-
Wait, you're at the college. You can go to that class.
Nobody wants to see their roommate naked. I'm with you there.
My roommate is my partner, so I would love to see my roommate.
Okay. If you're in a safe, creative environment, then more power to you, and that will be fine. And we can live with that. That'd be great.
I have to shave my dog.
So there's a question from Elizabeth of what time to pick up clay tomorrow.
Just about any time. I'm going to be in here at 9 o'clock in the morning with my morning design class. I'm going to put the clay out on the back porch. I mean, the side porch here, the west side of the building. And so I'll put clay and boards and stuff out there in case you need clay and boards to do another sculpture on. And then if you're delivering sculpture, you can please leave it out here on the concrete, and I'll be bringing it in the afternoon. And that's good until like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Usually on a Friday, I will be kind of buttoning up things in the afternoon. Sometimes I will leave and come back, but I will leave all that stuff out on the back porch here. And they don't want me meeting you guys in person, so they're very concerned about me doing any kind of curbside service or having any interaction with the students, because they think I'm old and they think I'm going to die. So as long as you guys are okay with not touching me or breathing on me or giving me your germs, we're good. As an artist who deals with the human figure study, I deal with these nude models all the time. I've been doing this for 35 years. And so my administrators get a little wigged out about the concept. But, I was trying to explain to them, if I have a nude model in the class, all the students are going to be masked up and the model will have a mask on. And they're so concerned that somehow this still is like too intimate or too dangerous or too whatever. It's like, well, the model's going to have to go home and take a shower, to get all that, virus off the skin, but at least they're not breathing it because they'll have a mask on. Does that help? Does that make sense? Does
You have to start.
What, Ted?
Go ahead.
I was just wondering if anything makes sense anymore.
No.
You have to start doing what the old timers did back in the beginning days of sculpture and go from other people's works.
Oh, yeah.
What was it? I forgot the years that they did that, but they used other people's artworks as models.
Well, there's that. And then there's just going to the morgue and drawing dead people.
Oh, yeah.
Or dissecting dead people when nobody's around so that you don't get in trouble with the church because you're learning too much about how the human body works.
Right.
Was it Da Vinci that did that?
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of frowned upon in the early Renaissance. It wasn't until the late Renaissance when people were actually studying the human body enough to advance medicine that the church wasn't getting involved in, trying to excommunicate you or, let's see, the early Renaissance. The whole Renaissance was right before the Reformation. So Reformation came about in the early 16th century. And so that's when science started to get advanced, when it wasn't just the church being able to tell you that you couldn't tell people like Galileo that they couldn't teach that there was a heliocentric solar system. And
Copernicus.
people couldn't dissect cadavers to learn about the human body and how it works. So
It's very weird seeing this sculpture on its side.
Man, I fucking hate these two fucking healers. Like, what the fuck are y'all doing?
What?
somebody's F-bomb roommate came home.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, no problem.
It doesn't bother me any. I was just was laughing because it was funny. I mean, I didn't see what was happening. That wasn't what was funny. It was the exclamation.
Oh, yeah, no, I share a sculpting space with my partner's gaming station. And so they are playing video games next to me, which is why I'm generally muted. But we have our mics open today, so you guys get to occasionally hear that, which I'll be more cautious of.
You're good.
I used to do it all the time. I don't so much anymore because I got to be so frequent. I was doing it and not realizing it.
Yeah, that's my whole life. I've been very good in this class.
Drop the F-bomb in front of my grandma and yeah.
Well, my grandma would drop the F-bomb all the time anyway, so.
Mine went, she was really religious and
Okay.
I didn't even realize I said it and my sisters are glaring at me. It's like, what did I do? I didn't even know I did it.
I'm pretty sure my grandma's the one that taught me that word.
So I just wanted to turn my sculpture to show you guys what I've done here for this first area of my sculpture that needed hollowing out. I chopped off this one big lobe and then I hollowed out the two mating surfaces of it. So now I can scratch and slip both mating surfaces and glue this back in here, and so that I've got that hollow space. A lot of people are concerned that if I create a hollow form inside my sculpture that doesn't have any air relief valves or anything like that, that it might blow up in the kiln. So once again, I want to tell you that my experience has been, my vast experience, is that it isn't air that you have to worry about, and air pockets don't tend to blow up in sculpture. It really is trapped moisture in your sculpture. So I try to dry things out super thoroughly, and then I can fire things fairly successfully as clay sculpture. So I would take my needle tool or a fork, because a fork is like 4 needles all at the same time, and scratch, scoring the clay so that all of my scoring marks are parallel, parallel to each other, because that gives me the most surface area for gluing the piece back together again. And then we use clay slip as our glue. In case you've never, done ceramics before, this is scratching and slipping. And it's how we glue all the clay pieces together in ceramics, to put a handle on a mug, or to put other pieces of a complex pottery piece together. We use scratch and slip method. And many of you have done this in high school, so it's not the first time you've seen this.
The high school I went to was very small. We had an art class, but it was very much so like, teach yourself how to do it. So I went to a project-based school.
Woo!
So we didn't have a kiln. So if we wanted to work with clay, it was all either oven-baked clay or air-dry clay.
Oh.
So your class is actually the first time I've ever actually gotten to play with like a wet clay, which is very fun for me.
Okay. So this is scoring of the clay surface with a needle tool, and getting the all the way around to get it well scored and scratched up, because that like triples or quadruples the amount of surface area, glue area that you've got to glue the piece back together again with the clay slip.
Right.
I'm going to do The same thing with the other mating surface and glue them back together again. And then I'm going to go on to another part of the sculpture and cut it apart and hollow it out. And I might not do it right away. I might let this set up and heal for a while, and I might hollow out another area at another time. But there's a piece right down here that I think I can hollow out next without disturbing anything. And I'll do that. I have had students who have taken a piece completely apart, hollowed everything apart, put it all back together, and turned their back on it, or covered it up and left for the day. And then the sculpture just decided to collapse and die and fall on the floor, because they will do that. If you turn your back on clay sculpture that you've hollowed out, it wants to just fall apart. So I do like to use temporary clay props once again to hold the pieces up while they are while the drying and gluing process is happening. So the clay knits itself back together, and all that excess moisture dries back out of the system before I'm going to turn my back on it and trust it to not fall apart. So here is my two mating surfaces have been prepared. Both mating surfaces have been scored. I have some slip made up in this bucket here from some of my small dry things and things that I have swept up, and all of the rest of that stuff. I have allowed it to sit in water and get nice and goopy. And of course, I've got my chip brush because I go buy this crap, and I didn't give you guys any brushes. I'm sorry. But this helps me keep my fingers out of the slop when I am applying the slip, because things get really slippery sloppy with clay slip. So I'm applying slip to the mating surfaces of this area of the sculpture, and then I'm going to glue it back together again. So slipping it up with the clay, applying clay slip to both mating surfaces. Now I'm going to put this back together again, where the seam takes it right back together again. I'm going to push it together and let the slip kind of ooze out, and go around and make sure that I've got everything going together evenly and pushing together well and closing up along all of the seams all the way around. But now I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to try to knead or blend or smooth that cut that I made. I want that to air dry, and all of that excess moisture that's in this seam right here, I want all that excess moisture that's squeezing out that seam to evaporate. And then, next time I sculpt on this thing, I can nicen up or sculpt on that seam a little bit and make the seam disappear and go away. If I sculpt on it right now and try to blend this seam away, as it evaporates, it will shrink a little bit, and that seam will reappear as an indentation, as a shrunken line right down the center of the sculpture. If I wait and come back and sculpt it, after 4 hours or tomorrow, then I can sculpt it successfully and make that seam disappear, and then you'll never know that it was there. So that's how we work with with water clay, with the hollowing process. Now, how can I do this? How can I make this work? Maybe now that I've done all that, I could maybe lay this thing down on its side, because my piece is not so damn big and elaborate that I can't just lay this piece over.
Excuse me.
Aurora.
If you look at my screen right now, it is on its side.
Oh, yours is on its side?
Oh yeah, I'm working on the bottom right now.
Okay. All right. You're brave.
Of course. If it breaks off, I can just scratch and slip it back on.
Okay. Hey, you know what? It's 2:15 already. Time flies when you're having fun. I should probably shut up for a while. So so you don't have to deal with me. I'm going to probably mute my mic for a while, If you want to talk to me or get my attention, just yell out and I'll come back on. But if I stop talking, that'll give you guys some space to talk. So I'm going to mute my mic for a while. Thank you so much for coming today. And if I look up and I'm the only one left in the Zoom, then I'll know it's time to quit. How about that? But I'll still be within earshot if you have a question.
Okay. So everybody who's left here, let's see, PC and James are the only ones still here. How are your guys' sculptures coming? Well,
Go get some lunch. Uh-oh. Yeah, both undone. Wow, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna mute my mic and I'll be ready to go. I got a mess going on here. Okay. Oh.
so if you're busy, I can wait to ask this question. But if not, I am trying to figure out what parts of my sculpture I need to hollow and what parts I don't. I don't know.
I'm back on.
Hello.
Were you asking me about what piece of your sculpture to hollow?
Well, I'm more just trying to figure it out because the like planier sections are wider, but then most of them have negative space behind them. So there's not really a lot of this that I need to hollow. Like,
I agree. I think you're
Okay.
pretty safe except for the base. If you can hollow it out from underneath, from the base element. Oh, yeah. I think you're going to be pretty safe because all of those holes, all those negative spaces are the equivalent of hollowing out those bigger forms. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank
You're
you.
good. I lied. I'm going to go because I've got an assistant here who wants to get some lunch. So I'm going to leave for now. I'm going to leave this on so that you guys can talk to each other if you want. Otherwise, I'll come back in an hour and shut it off.
Wait, hold on. Let me just ask PC. Are you paying attention?
Yeah, I am.
Do you want to just get off Zoom so you can work? I don't mind. I won't be upset with you.
Oh, it doesn't bother me. I'll probably, I'm good for now. I'll probably take off when I need to get up and move around and take a break. I
All right.
have arthritis and two artificial hips, so if I sit too long, it bothers me.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna actually take a small break so that way he can just turn the Zoom off.
Okay.
Yeah, I could do that too.
Okay.
That way, yeah.
All right.
All right.
I'll see you guys. Let's see. Today is Thursday. So maybe I'll see you tomorrow dropping off and picking up stuff. And otherwise, I'll see you next week.
See you tomorrow.
What time
what
did
time?
you?
Oh, anytime between 9 and 4.
9 and 4. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let
Okay,
Elizabeth
thank you.
know.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.